Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, quote, "And when the Exalted One says it's been made permissible for you what is besides that," what this is referring to is what's been mentioned in these ayat, the sunnah has been clarified. So, it is impermissible for someone to marry a woman and her aunt, and impermissible to marry the paternal or maternal aunt. And Allah has clarified this matter. Our Sheikh Ali ibn Ubaidullah has said, and the vast majority of the ulama, that the statement has been made permitted, it's been permitted for you besides that, meaning that all other things that have not been forbidden to you in the preceding ayat are open to be done, other than what has been said to you. For example, when the Prophet ﷺ said, a woman is not to be married along with her paternal aunt or her maternal aunt, this is not an abrogation, but it is an addendum. Because whatever is besides that, meaning all of what's been said to you in Revelation, whatever is besides that, then you may marry them. And when the Exalted One says, you may seek to marry these women with your wealth, seeking to give them the bridal gift for nikah, as long as you're doing so as muhsineen, being chaste, seeking to marry them, contracting a marriage contract, and as long as you're doing so with the sake of being chaste and not fornicators, and not taking them as girlfriends. Because this matter is one in which the covenant has to be taken. And there is no nikah except with a covenant of marriage. And whatever among them you find pleasing, then give them their bridal gifts. And that which has been given in the marriage are the bridal gifts, and that which is pleasing is them. And this has been mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Al-Hasan, Mujahid, and the vast majority. Secondly, that all of what's been mentioned in the covenant of marriage is to be upheld, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Now, this also outlaws, this ayah, nikah al-mut'ah, which is the temporary marriage. Ibn Abbas in the beginning, before knowing about this ruling, declared that the nikah al-mut'ah was valid, but then he left this position once he found that the matter had been abrogated. So this ayah negates nikah al-mut'ah, and it's abrogated. And in the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ had left the nikah al-mut'ah, but after revelation, he then told them that this was forbidden. And this is clearly what states that it is abrogated, as in the hadith in the Sahih of Muslim. So the ayah is clear proof that someone should be taking someone in a marriage that is authentic, and that they should not marry them for a temporary time period, which would take away from the marriage. They are contracting a marriage as a covenant, giving them their bridal gifts. There's no mistake about this whatsoever. Let the matter be clarified. Close quote. What the Imam is talking about here is in the original, if you look in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, under the book of Nikah, the Prophet ﷺ had not been given revelation yet on what to do about some people when they were contracting Nikah al-Mut'ah. They were marrying for a period of time, a short period of time. He hadn't been given revelation on that, so he said nothing on that regard. But not long after, when he received revelation, particularly these ayat and other things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said to them, he said to them not to do this anymore. Now, this was at the same time that he was asked about coitus interruptus, which is for people practicing a type of birth control. Now the ulama on this hadith, because they're connected, on this hadith, the ulama are split into a sharp fraction. The use of birth control is centered around three areas. Barrier, withdrawal, and timed birth control. Barrier, withdrawal, and timed birth control. Barrier birth control is the use of condoms, the use of female condoms, the use of anything that would block the bottleneck opening to where the sperm would reach their destination. If anyone thinks this is a bit racy, we have to speak in the language of revealed law. So if anyone thinks this is racy, you'll have to cover your ears. But this is the matter. This is barrier contraception. Now, within this area, some of the ulama dispute on an issue of karahiyah, whether it's disliked to do it, because of the fact of the possibility of diminishing the pleasure of the time and what could happen. The scholars of the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal say that if the man wants to use barrier contraception, or he wants to ask his wife to use the barrier contraception, he must gain her permission before using it. This is the fatwa of Imam Ahmad. This is the only school that holds that position. The rest of them do not require the permission of the female to use barrier contraception. And the barrier contraception could include, like I said, condoms for men or female, male or females, males or females, foams, or other matters. The second is timed contraception. Timed contraception. Within this type of contraception, timed contraception, there are two types. One is sterilization, hysterectomy, or a vasectomy, which the ulama have ruled unanimously to be impermissible because it involves marring the body, damaging the body, changing the creation of Allah, and destroying one's reproductive capacity. The second is the use of the birth control pill. We have to talk about how it works before we can talk about the sense of why the ulama's rulings are as they are. The birth control pill works thusly. In a normal environment, a woman, after having had her monthly cycle, the body prepares for pregnancy. As the body gets closer to ovulation, where an egg will be released, a thick lining for the nourishment of the would-be embryo develops in the uterus. The breasts become tender, the hormone levels become at the highest point. At that highest point, the egg then drops. The egg has a 24-hour period to live. If it does not survive within that 24-hour period, it will die. It is the size of about a pill or an aspirin. It has a limited period to live. The birth control pill causes the message to be sent to the body that the woman is already pregnant. And so the hormonal levels remain at one level, constantly. But the woman has to take blanks throughout the month to make sure that there's a time where the levels can ease off and she will have her cycle. Otherwise, if she takes the birth control pills, most of them without any blanks, she will have no monthly cycle ever. This is why they usually will give you blanks. Some will be blue or some will be red. They give you opportunity where you can have a cycle. Some women, they take them without blanks. So the body is constantly being told that it's pregnant. The true monthly cycle is the body preparing every month to be pregnant. That's what that lining is. If the egg doesn't drop, or if there's no egg there, if the egg doesn't get fertilized, the lining in the uterus sloughs off, and that is the blood of the menstrual cycle. But what happens is the birth control pill, the chemicals or what have you within it, cause the message to be sent to the brain that we're already pregnant, don't form any lining, don't do anything. Now, some birth control pills have been linked to cervical and ovarian cancer. The ulama say, if you find that the particular pill that you are taking has been, it is haram to take it. Because you are endangering your life and it is clear that you're in danger. But if it hasn't been linked to it, then it is permitted. Just as a side note, the least reliable of all these birth control methods I've mentioned so far is the condom and the birth control pill. The birth control pill is less reliable than the condom. Just as a side note. Finally, and the third point, is the uzla, or the azl. What this is, and the ulama have written big, thick, monster manuals on this, is where the husband or wife or what have you finds out the day that the woman will ovulate, and if they are seeking to avoid pregnancy, 5 days before that ovulation period, they do not have sexual intercourse. Why? Well, if there's a buildup and the woman ovulates on day 35, let us say, they don't want to have a child. They don't want to have any more children. But they don't want to use the barrier method. They don't want to use birth control pills. They don't want to use diaphragms. They don't want to use foams. They don't want to use these contraptions. So they say, we want to use al-uzla or al-azl. What do we do? They find out, and they can see through the woman's progression by taking her temperature every day and watching how the temperature increases, hormonal levels. The woman has discharges throughout the month. When she has the clear discharge, there will be a series of clear discharges, a foamy discharge, then a sticky foamy discharge. When that discharge comes, that means that the ovulation will come exactly 1 day after. Because that sticky, clear, fluidy discharge is that which the sperm will live in on the 5-day travel to the womb. So someone's trying to avoid the pregnancy. 5 days before, you make sure that you don't have sexual intercourse 5 days before. So on day 30 to 35, don't do anything. Because what will happen is the sperm can survive for 5 days in that fluid. Once you hit day 35, the egg goes through its process. Nothing's there to fertilize the egg. It dies. And it washes out with the monthly blood. If you are trying to get pregnant and you can't figure out, well, I don't understand why we haven't been able to get pregnant, you need to find out when your ovulation is, and in the run-up to that, to make sure 5 days before and up until the day that you have sexual intercourse. These are the methods of birth control, and the ulama unanimously approve that because it's the easiest, and they say that it's the most foolproof. And it is. If you are planning and saying, well, we don't want children, and you make sure there's no egg there, can you get pregnant when there's no egg there? No. If there's no egg there, you can't get pregnant. If you're planning on getting pregnant and you wait, it's 5 days before or up to the day of ovulation, will you get pregnant? Yes. Barring any abnormal circumstances, yes. So that's the most effective method. It's 100% method, 100% effective. If there's no egg there, there's no pregnancy. If there's an egg there, there's pregnancy. All of the other methods are probabilistic. This third method I've called you, Catholics have the same ruling. They call it natural family planning, NFP. A large book, bigger than my fist as I'm making it right now, was recently released by a number of scholarly women on the topic called Natural Family Planning. It is a mammoth compendium of information, graphic pictures, but overall discussion on how to carry out natural family planning. It's between 30 and 45 pounds depending upon where you order it from. But it might be worth you looking into if you want to understand better about something the ulama have been giving rulings on and understanding for 1400 years. So this matter of birth control was connected to this particular issue that had to do with prisoners in war being taken, temporary marriage. Very quickly, temporary marriage, they would contract the marriage for a particular period of time. And at the expiry of that time, they would go their separate ways. This is what would happen. So the marriage would expire like your driver's license, your MOT, your television license, your season tickets to the Chicago Cubs. It would expire. What happened when it was abrogated, and this is one of the sticking points between the people of Muslim Orthodoxy and the Shia, is they believe that it wasn't abrogated. So there is a whole ministry in Iran that deals with the nikah al-mut'ah. And it's been a clever way to keep prostitution, but to regulate it. Because you're able to have contracts and to bring about things and to say, well, these children are still looked after, but there's a stigma attached to these mut'ah children. But among some Sunnis, there are some people trying to do mut'ah as well. But instead, they call it misyar. They call it misyar. And there are some Sunnis trying to do it as well. But they've given it another fancy name, jumbled around some of the necessaries, but they are still doing the same thing. How did this happen? Do you know what the fatwa was of the ulama? They didn't just say it was haram, but they said that the reason why this has been coming about is because of the parents delaying the marriage of their children. That's why. Misyar came about because of that. The children are trying to get married. They get delayed, they get delayed, they get delayed, they get delayed. They have desires or whatever needs, and they do the nikah al-misyar. All these type of things, the ulama said, it's a symptom of an underlying disease of delaying and not marrying early. And that's why it happened. But nonetheless, the nikah al-mut'ah, whatever we want to call it, is impermissible. The Prophet ﷺ, it was abrogated. This ayah by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stating in this ayah, وَأُحِلَّ لَكُمْ مَا وَرَاءَ ذَلِكُمْ أَن تَبْتَغُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ مُحْصِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ. And it's been made permitted for you what is besides that you seek by your wealth to give them their bridal gifts, to be in a state of ihsan, not to commit fornication, nor taking them as girlfriends. And the ayah is mentioned again in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you at the bottom not to وَلَا مُتَّخِذَاتِ أَخْدَانِ, and don't take these women as girlfriends. مُتَّخِذَات أَخْدَانِ means girlfriends, literally. So we've been told that girlfriends, don't do it. Don't do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually clearly told you in the language. You can't get any more clear. وَلَا مُتَّخِذَاتِ أَخْدَانِ. Taken girlfriends. Women taken. No covenant, nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you. Now,